ekam akharam hruti nirantaram bhasati swayam likyate katham hridaya kuharamatye kevalam sampurna Atmarupe Sahati Hrudi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Achyata Arnachalanaro Tha Atmanishto Satvam Deham Pranmaya Jadatmakam Aham Buddhatnatasyastyatu Naham Shatatadbhavashukti Samaye Siddhatmasadbha Drishta Nishta Sputitaya Aruna Chalashiva Vibhavati Swayam Sputitaya Aruna Chalashiva Vibhavati Swayam Namoramna. With Bhagavan Singham's grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Vivekachoodamani. The original in Sanskrit is by Bhagavad Padma Adi Shankara, and the translation in free-flowing prose form is by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We have covered up to verse number 33 in the original Sanskrit text. We are to take about 20 verses in each of the satsangs and follow what Bhagavan has indicated as the free-flowing prose, almost word for word translation of the Sanskrit verses of Adi Shankara. We have come up to the point where the qualifications of the Sishya, the disciple, have been shown to us to be the ability to discriminate between the real and the unreal, then not seeking of any results in phala in this world or in any of the worlds hereafter. Put in other words, have detachment. the same has been put in different ways in two different places. In one place, it is called as non-seeking of desires in this world or the next. In another place, it is called as detachment. Then the Shat Sampati, Samadhi, Samadhama, all those Shat Sampati are required. And then intense mumukshutva, to know that the root cause of this bondage is the identification with the physical body and the ego, and to seek this Swarupa, to seek one's own Swarupa as the singular mode for liberation. And that led us to the definition of the Acharya that the bhakti is among all the paths the most sreshta to get liberation. And what is bhakti? Swaswarupa anusandhanam. The seeking to know one's own Swarupa is the essence of bhakti. Once the Shishya's qualifications were laid out like this, he seeks out the right Guru. And what are the brief qualities of the Guru? Brief qualities of the Guru laid out were that he is an ocean of immutable wisdom. His knowledge is all comprehensive. He is pure as crystal. He has attained victory over desires. He is supreme among the knowers of Brahman. He is an endless reservoir of mercy. And his abidance in the Brahman is like the fire which has consumed all the fuel. All the sticks and other materials offered have been completely consumed. No more vasanas left to burn. So an easy, natural abidance in the Brahman, and the mercy is not for any cause. It is unexplainable. It is natural. The nakaruna guna stavavidampate hridaya tejasaha. It is the natural shining of the self that is called as karuna wherever it manifests out of that Guru. Such a Guru is sought out. That is where we ended our last satsang. We are going on and trying to look at verses 34 to 53 of the original. You can recall that we have given the link to the original translation in English from Ramakrishna Ashram. All the verses are translated into English and available there. You can refer that. We are going to cover verses 34 to 53. Almost 20 of them. It neatly falls into a end of a topic. So we are going to see that. And approaching this Guru, who is abiding in the Brahman and who is an endless ocean of mercy, this Shishya now meditates on where he finds himself. Why has he come to this Guru? And he is reporting to the Guru, tormented by samsara. He is being, the torment need not be the individual's place in life. It can be an inquiry into where we all are, like in Buddha's case, that are we really in the cozy circumstances which I as an individual seem to be enjoying. I seem to be inside a comfortable room in Bangalore, safe and sound. But is that the environment in which I live? Obviously not. Even today, the environment is so clearly explosive that we can easily feel that the heat of samsara. You are not sure about the next moment is now an experience for all of us. That is the readiness we have to place ourselves in as a country. So this is not so difficult. This set of circumstances explained by the Shishya, that he finds himself in a terrible situation. He calls it as ocean of trouble. He calls it as a tapagni. It is the forest, as though the forest has been set on fire and he has been put right in the middle. And he says it is like the midsummer sun and he is out in the open. He is burning like that from samsara. Even another form of inquiry will reveal this to us, that how bound we are, how the circumstances that we find ourselves in this session, if you go back 5 minutes into the circumstances which have led us up to this, you will find the causes and effects are so intricately connected. My friend's mother was taken to hospital in front of the house. My role was to just inquire her loading or her getting into the ambulance. It could have been different in a different circumstance. And all those things we are talking of just 5 minutes before, if those had small twists, then we wouldn't be in front of the screens that we are. There was a particular movie about life going in reverse. That movie was called, I think if I am not wrong, it was The Strange Life of Benjamin Button or something like that, where he would be born as a 100-year-old and will go in reverse direction and die as a child, something like that. But then in that one incident will be taken up for inquiry as to this samsaric bonding, how tied up we are. That a ballet dancer who will be looking for a beautiful career as an international ballet dancer, she will be practicing in the opera house, the hall, along with the rest of her friends. 5 minutes before the end of the dance, this scene starts. That 5 minutes before the end of the dance, simultaneously, another lady in her home, she gets out to take a taxi. Just out of the house, she remembers that she has forgotten her overcoat. So gets back into the house and collects the overcoat and comes. And as soon as she comes, she gets into a taxi. That person, the taxi driver who met her, had just before taken a break from his seeking of clients and had a coffee. And both of them, they meet a person on the road who runs into the middle of the road because he is 5 minutes late. He got up 5 minutes late and he is in a hurry to go to office. Because that man comes right into the way of the taxi and the taxi driver is alert, the taxi has to be stopped for a few moments. Then it moves ahead. Then those two ladies who are practicing, they come out of the hall and the friend, she breaks her lace. While tying the lace, she breaks it. And the protagonist lady, the lady who is the key figure in this movie, she has to stay back for a few moments. And with all these events, when she comes out of the hall into the main road, the taxi, which could have just passed by, if any of those previous events had slightly changed, if the court taking by that lady had not been there, she would have picked up some other taxi. If that person had not got up 5 minutes late, he wouldn't have come in the way of this car, in this taxi. So you can imagine any of the scenarios you are in, and we are right now in a scenario, let us take. If you go back just few minutes into the various components that are involved in this scenario, and they have not taken all the elements that go into making up of this event right here. And they find that any small change in those events, then this accident, which is dependent on the meeting of certain things at a moment, at a given point, wouldn't have taken place surely. Now, how fixed is that? And how much fun we have taken in feeling that we are doing things. that we are free to experience what we want, and that we are so and so labeled good people, so only good things will happen to us. Now, if all those are fixed like that, then where are we? What do we know about the next events that are going to unfold? What kind of burning is awaiting us, or what kind of freeing is awaiting us? We don't know. And that is only at the physical level, and they have not entered into all the physical elements. There is in that scene, there is a lorry which is parked in such a way that she is not able to see the oncoming traffic. So if the lorry had not been parked there, she would have seen the oncoming taxi, and so on and so forth. You can go. Now the story of misery doesn't end there. That if you investigate, to the investigating mind, obviously the Sishya, the disciple, is one who has inquired into these things. We find that our thoughts are not in our control. What the experiment given by meditators for today is, can you look at your next thought, and would you have known that that would be your next thought? And 100%, you will, one or two thoughts down the road, you will know that you could not have predicted as that would be the thought. So the structuring of these physical events. So why did that person go back for the coat? Because she remembered. Because that thought had come that without overcoat it will be a cold day. Why did this person have to stop for her friend's broken lace? Because she saw it, and they thought that she should wait for her to precedence. If they had had a fight the previous day, and if she remembered that, she would not have waited for her friend, she would have moved on. So the physical events seem to be tied up with even finer threads made up of thoughts. And of course, you can analyze further that intellectual thoughts are even finer than the normal mental thoughts. But that is where our freedom starts coming in, where the teachers start coming in and start telling us how to get out of this misery, and what is the boat on which you can travel this ocean of samsara. And the other analogy referred in this segment of the initial verses from 34 onwards is that the Guru's Upadesham, which is going to get us out of this entanglement. Of course, we should all remember that Bhagavan teaches us here, our prarabdha prakaram, the ordainer remaining immanent within each individual controls their destiny according to their prarabdha. Therefore, that which is to happen will happen. Try however much you may to stop it. That which will not happen. Try however much you may to make it happen. This is certain. Hence, the best course is to remain silent. He doesn't live with the destiny. He says that by accepting, by surrendering, by letting go, in whichever word you want to use. In common parlance, without bhakti and jnana reference, you may say accept what is happening. What is in your plate, you accept that. Then in bhakti, you can say that surrender. In jnana marga, let go. But that the possibility that with practice, consciousness can be free of whatever is happening. It can learn to accept. It can learn to surrender whatever is happening. It can be completely free of all happenings with detachment. That is the teaching that the Guru is going to give. That there is a way out of this samsara, out of this burning forest, which is literally burning us, for the ones who are aware of what is happening, that how tied up we are in the events, that the next moment, what kind of events are we going to face from such a complex scenario, each tied up with another? What network of events is going to present itself in front of me? That is the tapagni, he says. And the Guru says, don't worry. And the Sishya says that your words will bring me peace, See, the Shishya is not only knowledgeable about the forest of, the burning forest of samsara, he is also aware that the Guru's words are coming from an anubhava of liberation, an anubhava of bliss beyond bondage. And therefore, he says, even while narrating in reply, the Acharya puts these words into the disciple's role. This whole work is an exchange in dialogue between disciple and Guru, and we are going to see it like that. The disciple, even before getting the Upadesha, he is having how he could have come to the Guru. An inclination is given by the Acharya as to what should be in us in reading the words of Bhagavan. From whereas Ulladu Narpadu come, from whereas Aksharamanamale come, whereas Upadesha Saram come. It has come from the bliss, the Ananda, the source of everything. So those very words are made up of that nectar. So when we do the Parayana of Upadesha Saram, when we do the Parayana of Ulladu Narpadu, when we do the Parayana of Aksharamanamale, the Guru's grace is coming out of his mouth towards us, and we are going to be removed of this torment of samsara. Because from where the words have come, the Shishya says here, your words bring peace, being born out of your experience of divine bliss. All the original works of Bhagavan are made up of that nectar of original bliss. And whosoever may hold them, whichever disciple, devotee realizes this and has bhakti, shraddha towards Bhagavan and holds them in Parayanam, holds them in the following of the teachings of Bhagavan, their tapatra is immediately reduced. The burning is immediately reduced. When we see that there is this possibility of accepting whatever is going to happen to us. Ellargu nadadange, nanagu naditade. Bangalore is one of the cities identified for the drill practice and all that. But what is Bhagavan saying? Whatever is going to happen to everyone is what is going to happen to you. Therefore, the best course is to accept, is to surrender, is to let go, or as he puts in that words, is to be still. Summa iruttal nandre. He says that how immediately all the anxieties drop. This is not for me alone. Ellargu nadiyudu, nanagu naditade. What is going to happen to all the citizens? That is only what is going to happen to me. Bhagavan would insist that he be served in the ashram only those things which are available to all the people in that dining hall. Don't serve me anything special, he would say. And that is where we are, where the Shishya asks, I do not indeed know what is my fate. You alone must protect me, setting me free from the sorrow of samsara. That is where the first segment ends. That is the plea of the Shishya. He is right there in the place where we all find ourselves in, very apparently, very clearly, that it is a burning samsara and none of us know our fate. As the Shishya says to the Guru, I don't know my fate, he says. I don't know where I am headed. None of us as individuals know what the next moment holds for us. What do we have to do? We have to surrender to the Guru's teachings, who has gone beyond the samsara and is blessing us with his divine bliss-filled words. The words of the Guru, words of Bhagavan, when he says, inquire, for whom is this unknowable fate situation? Who am I? Turn inward. You exist beyond the situation. In that coolness of self-attention, in that coolness of bliss of the self, is what Bhagavan gives us as Upadesham. So, right now, while we are meditating on these verses, 34 to 53, we are in a situation where we can identify with the disciple and his plea about samsara and fate, that we really don't know where we are headed. But the words of Bhagavan are definitely going to bring us a bliss, a silence, a peace, which is beyond this merely outward turmoil. And what is the Guru's assurance is the next segment. When the disciple thus takes refuge in the Guru, as enjoined by the scriptures, he waits upon the Guru, unable to bear the burning winds of samsara. His mind grows calm through the following of Guru's bidding. He starts to follow the Guru's bidding. Immediately, the mind starts becoming quiet. What does the Guru say? My learned disciple, have no fear. No harm will come to you. These are the words right in the midst of the burning samsara. The Guru is telling, have no fear. No harm will come to you. I will give you the single mighty means by which you can cross this terrible, fathomless ocean of samsara and thus obtain supreme bliss. Whatever may be the situation that you find yourself in, however terrible burning the samsara may be, I am going to give you one solution with which you will be able to come out of this terrible situation, is what the Guru is assuring. By this means, world-renowned sadhus have crossed samsara, and your bondage also shall be destroyed here and now. The assurance is that not only the Guru who has crossed the samsara by this method or by this one boat that is going to show, but many world-renowned gurus have crossed this terrible samsara using that one boat. What is that one boat? He is going to tell us. Before telling us the singular thing which is going to help us cross the samsara, he is putting out some few indications as to what should be the preconditions we should have before taking up that inquiry he is going to put before us. We should have Shraddha, we should have Bhakti. These are what the scriptures are saying. The scriptures declare the means of liberation for seekers are Shraddha, devotion, meditation, and yoga. And the Guru's Upadesham, to begin with, this is not the singular board, but these are the preliminaries. The preliminaries are, you should be strong in faith, your devotion should be unshakable, that the path of self-enquiry is the one redeeming path, the path of surrender to Bhagavan in tandem with self-enquiry is the only sadhana that I am going to pursue. Surrender on the outside, enquiry within. Now, the faith in that, the Shraddha with which we are going to practice, and the actual meditation, the carrying out of the vichara, and the yoga, the abidance in the samadhi sthiti till it becomes sahaja. These are what are required, and the upadesha is that you are not going to be given the liberation by me just like that, okay, take it and go, but you have to relentlessly practice with Shraddha, with devotion. You have to practice the meditation suggested, and you should abide in the nididhyasana or in the yoga sthiti when you come to that. And this should be done as the Appalapadu tells us, Santatam Salipar. You should do it continuously. You shall do obtain by these means, and if you practice them constantly, you shall be set free from the bondage caused by the body, the attachment which has come through ignorance. So, what is the singular boat which should be accompanied with the practice of all this? The Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana or the Vichara, as well as the Nididhyasana or the Yoga. The singular path is going to put before us is how the bondage has come and what is the liberation. These are the two things which make up the two sides of the boat. You should be very clear as to how the bondage has come and what is the path to liberation. What is the method? These two form the singular boat which he assured. I am going to give you one thing with which you are going to cross the ocean of samsara, he says, no? That he is going to delineate now. You are, this is that part. This verse contains the solution and the problem in the form of one boat. You are of the nature of Paramatma. The Tattvamasi is what the Guru is telling to the Sishya. You are not the one trapped inside the body and suffering from the fire of samsara on all sides. You are not this Jiva whom you have identified with. You are actually the Parama. You are that Paramatma, and this bondage of samsara, of non-self, has come upon you only through ignorance. So one side of the boat is you are actually the Paramatma. You are actually already beyond the ocean. You are the Paramatma. You are not that individual who is caught up in this body and is suffering from the samsara. But this identity with the non-self, how it has come about? It has come about through this side of the boat called ignorance. So ignorance is what one has to recognize from the Guru's Upadesha. What is Guru's Upadesha? Guru's Upadesha is not that we are going to travel from this place to another place in this world or a next world and then get liberated. What is blocking our liberation? It is not that we are physically separated from liberation. Are we temporally separated from liberation? Is it that we have to spend some time at the feet of the Guru or at the feet of somebody? And if you pass that time, then you will get liberation? No. What is the root cause of the misery of the torturous samsara? Is the ignorance of who you are, the ignorance of the self, the identification with the non-self, with the body. That is the one side of the boat. That since the ignorance is the root cause, the liberation is not going to be set up in after going to that place you will get, or after spending of some time you will get. No, it is going to be, what is the opposite of ignorance? The opposite of ignorance is knowledge. So it is through the knowledge of the self that you are going to find liberation. So how does the samsara, how it has come about to you? The bondage of samsara of the non-self has come upon you only through ignorance. It will be utterly destroyed by the knowledge born of enquiry of the self. It will be utterly destroyed. This is the key sentence to today's discussions. The key sentence that has to be carried home is that the Guru is telling, he is going to explain it further. The Shishya doesn't understand it immediately. He is going to ask question and the Guru is going to answer. But for us who have been practicing Atma Vicharam, who have been exposed to Ullad Narpada and Bhagavan's teachings, what is the thing that should be taken out of this almost, let us say, the second satsang on the, or the third satsang on the body of the work? The takeaway should be that the cause and effect of the Jnana Marga is not by doing some work, or is not by going from one place to another, or is not by waiting in time or waiting for a future moment of time when somebody will come and liberate you. Those are not the causes and effects mentioned for the samsaric problem here. What is the cause of the samsaric problem? It is not knowing. It is the ignorance of the self, ignorance of who we are. And that ignorance, how does it affect? How does it manifest? It manifests as clinging to the non-self, clinging to the identity in the body, identity in the mind. And what is the nivritti? What is the solution? What is the medicine? The medicine for this disease is, as the cause of the disease is ignorance, the medicine or the solution is knowledge of the self, or self-enquiry, enquiry into the truth of the self. This ignorance will be totally destroyed, utterly destroyed by knowledge born out of enquiry of the self. This is the second segment that we have covered. This is the reply of the Guru. What was the first segment? The Sishya describing his samsaric problems in details. All of us are right within there. We don't know our fate. We don't know what next burning is waiting for us. But then the Guru says there is one boat. There is the Guru's words, which are coming out of a deep experience of that bliss of the self. It is telling that there is only one reason why you are feeling this torturous burning of samsara. It is because you don't know who you are. It is because you have identified with the jiva bhava, by identifying with the body, the ego, and the way out is the knowledge of the self. This is what has been outlined. Now the Shishya is going to ask certain questions. The disciple questions, what is bondage? Gazing on the Guru who says this, the disciple asks, "O Master, what is bondage? How did it come? How does it survive? And how is it destroyed? What is the non-self? And what indeed is the self? What is the discrimination between self and non-self? Graciously bless me with the answers to these questions, so that by bearing your replies, I may be blessed." This is the literal translation of two shlokas. Towards the end of the segment, we are discussing. The disciple is asking, what are the questions? These are the questions we should have. That why do we find ourselves in this situation where there is anxiety, there is feeling, should we leave Bangalore and go somewhere? But then we remember in some place it is said that you will meet your destiny in the very road you take to avoid it. So what do you do? That, and we were discussing that destiny is not merely physical. It is tied with the fine threads of thoughts, and thoughts which can be, most of them are, we are unconscious of, and we can do nothing about. They suddenly rise, and with that we help tie up the samsaric canvas. And what can anybody do about this canvas? How can one bit on this tabletop imagine that it should be somewhere else? Our position in the scheme of things is so intricately interwoven and interconnected that we are like this black spot on the top of this plastic table. Now, if it can imagine that I should not be here, I should be somewhere else, that has probably more probability than this body being elsewhere at this moment. To that extent, the intricate interweavings are there in the prarabdha. And the Guru has said the cause for all this suffering is the ajnana, the ignorance of the self, and the solution is self-enquiry. Now the Guru, the Shishya is asking the questions which we should note as our questions to be asked. What is bondage? How did it come about? How does the bondage survive? How is it to be destroyed? That is one set of questions. And here Guru had referred as non-self-self, as the non-self identification is what is bondage, he had said. So the Shishya asks about that also. What is the non-self and what indeed is the self? And what is the discrimination between self and non-self? Graciously bless me with answers to these questions, so that by hearing your replies, I may be blessed. Here the Acharya is summing up the questions we should have. Why is it that a little conversation with my child puts me into great anxiety? I am worried about the child's future in so many angles. And that worry is manifest, and the child can see, my daughter can see that I am worried about her, and that worry puts her off. And this mutual putting each other into anxiety seems to be happening all the time. So what is this bondage? Why is it that intending to give her peace, intending to put her in a good place, I make her more anxious? That father is not confident about my future. When she feels like that, she is even more worried. What should I do to convince Appa? That becomes another thought for her. Now, when such intricate bondage is there, how does that bondage sustain, and how am I going to end it? What is the ending of that bondage? Can I really bring any kind of relative peace to my so-and-so, whom I call as my daughter, my wife, and all that? Why am I bound like this? And why I am tightening the bondage by my very anxieties? Is there a way out? And what is this that you are calling as non-self? And identification with the non-self and you are introducing a new term called as I am the Paramatman, I am the self. What is that indeed? What is that Paramatman? And what is the discrimination between self and non-self, which we have said, which we have found out to be the Mula Viveka. And I had quoted the verse from Ulladinarpade, the verse number 11, which is so critical in the dyad of the knowledge and ignorance, the Jnanamarga dyad. We saw that the worldly knowledge and ignorance was agreed as an objective dyad in verse number 10, and that objective dyad demolishes or gets destroyed when you inquire into for whom is this dyad. But in verse 11, Bhagavan introduces the Atma Anatma Viveka itself as knowledge ignorance dyad. And that we were pointing out that Acharya has put that Viveka on pedestal. He calls that as Chudamani. What is that Chudamani Viveka? The Chudamani Viveka is all other dyads arise only after the dyad of self, non-self, the Atma Anatma dyad arises. Now, in Viveka, this is the Chudamani, and the Acharya is going to simply praise the disciple for this. But before we go to that segment where the Guru is going to praise, let us soak this in, and how important it is to understand that all the other dyads, like and dislike, good and bad, which the Buddhi divides the whole of mind and whole of samsara into, they arise only after the arising of the Atma Anatma dyad. You can always ask, for whom is this? You will come to, for me, who am I? You cross the Atma Anatma dyad. This, if you can hold on, we will appreciate why the Guru is going to be profuse in his praise of this Sishya, who has summed up that what is bondage, why is it sustained, how it can be opened up, how it can be destroyed, and what is this Anatma you call. Bondage is connecting with Anatma. What is this non-self you are saying? What is the self indeed? And what is the discrimination between self and non-self? He has come to the crux of the Viveka, and the Guru is going to appreciate him. Guru replies toward the end of our segment. To this request of the disciple, the Guru answered, "Dear soul, if you have felt the desire to be the self, free from bondage caused by ignorance, you are indeed blessed. You have achieved life's purpose. You have sanctified truly your whole lineage." These are the praises that the Guru bestows on the Sishya for just coming to this root discrimination of self, non-self. Because on this lies all the other multiplicities. All the multiplicities is for this root of self, non-self division. There is verse number 13 again in Ulladinarpade, where Nanavam Jnanam Ajnanam. When you see multiplicity of knowledge, it is for someone. So the whole area of multiplicity of knowledge only arises after the arising of the dyad of self and non-self. So the self-attentive self is the way to cross the bondage of multiplicity of knowledge. This country, that country, war, that, this, all that is multiplicity of knowledge. It is for whom? For whom is this multiplicity of knowledge? In one other verse in Ulladinarpade, Bhagavan would say, Namandri Naledi Naded. Where is time? Where is place without the self-attentive self? How to cross this samsaric torture? Get out of the feeling that you are bound by time and space. Time and space are dependent on the self-attentive self. In fact, you get bound in the time and space only when you are not the self-attentive self. How to get out of this samsaric torture is to inquire, for whom is this feeling I am in Bangalore. I am in Bangalore arises only after I identify with the body. And earlier, we have found that the Sishya is one who is a mumukshu. What is mumukshutva according to Vivekachoodamani? It is mumukshutva is to understand that identification with the body, identification is with the ego is bondage, and to seek the Swarupa, the Swaswarupa seeking is liberation. So the Sishya is already aware of that. He is only going to reinforce that Viveka by specifically asking the Guru, what is this bondage, what is liberation, why is bondage persisting, what is non-self, what is self. And the Guru is so pleased, he's saying, if you have this intention of finding the self and freeing yourself from the ignorance that is bondage, then your whole lineage is blessed. He says, you are indeed blessed. You have achieved life's purpose. For having taken birth, you have achieved that goal. You have come to the root of Viveka. Just as, but then he's going to put the onus on sadhana, onus of sadhana on the disciple. He's going to specifically say that this coming to liberation cannot be handed over to you like a morning breakfast on a platter. It has to be done by yourself. How is he? He's going to take two analogies to show that this has to be something that one has to put oneself to sadhana and understand. Just as sons and other relations can pay off the debts of a father, so others are there who can free one from bearing a burden on one side. But the distress caused by hunger can be cured only by taking food. The distress caused by a disease to oneself can be removed only by taking the medicine oneself. So the analogy given is, if it is the monetary debt of a father on his deathbed, he can rely on his sons, he can rely on a close friend or relative whom he has helped, and he is thriving now. He is having 40,000 crores. For him, this 50 lakhs or 30 lakhs is nothing. So he can rely on that person to write off this debt. But this bondage is of such nature, it is like hunger. Can you ask somebody else to eat for you? Obviously not. If you are hungry, you have to eat the food yourself. If you are having some disease, you have to take the medicine yourself. Similarly, for removal of ajnana, self-enquiry has to be done by oneself. If you are sick, you must take the medicine and keep a proper diet yourself. No one else can do it for you. Similarly, bondage comes to you through your own ignorance and can be removed by your own inquiry into the self and no other means. This is the end of verse 53. From 34 to 53 we have covered. What are the main things we have covered? That the Shishya is first to recognize that so far as he is feeling that he is surrounded by the world, he should first realize the way in which it is a burning fire. That the next moment, what is going to happen? That means one has to realize one's vulnerability. The vulnerability can be viewed when, especially those of us who drive car in Bangalore, we know how flimsy, or better still, if you are a pedestrian walking in the platforms which are somewhere there, some are there, some are not there. In the mornings when you go for your morning walk, you understand how vulnerable it is. That anybody who is passing by, any of the cables, any of the 10,000 moving parts in one of those cars, if it goes off, there is no way you can avoid it. You are going, you are not even seeing what is coming. Now, those odds we don't inquire. We just like that live. But once you inquire, you understand the vulnerability. But it's not merely to stop with that vulnerability and fear. It's to go to the Guru, who is going to remove us from this actuality of vulnerability by giving us a solution. He's going to say, don't be afraid, that there is indeed a boat. And that boat he briefly defines as that on the one side, you have forgotten the self. On the other side, you can inquire into the self, no. And then the Shishya, he proceeds with asking the queries as to what is bondage, what is self, what is non-self, what is discrimination between self and non-self. And the Acharya reinforces to us that these are the very questions we should have. That what is the Atma, Anatma, Vivekam, that should be at the heart of our inquiries. Because the whole samsara arises only after the I thought arises. Naan ezhunda pin, ellam ezhum. You can take that naan ezhunda pin as Atma Anatma Elundapin. When that one Atma rises as Atma Anatma duality, then only everything else arises in the Anatma area. Therefore, Atma Anatma, from the pure Atma, when the ego rises first, along with that rises all multiplicity. Therefore, only after the rise of the first duality of Atma Anatma, all the problems, miseries arise. Your basic inquiry should be into for whom is this, and even to recognize this Viveka, that this is at the root of the problem. The Guru is almost overjoyed. He's saying, you have come up to this point, that you have understood that at the root of the problems is the identification with the non-self, and you indeed want to seek the self. There can be nothing better. Your life, your purpose of having taken birth is served. You are indeed blessed. Your whole lineage into which you are born is blessed, he says. In fact, elsewhere, Bhagavan would say, the whole of humanity, the best gift that one can give to the whole of humanity, whole of created living, is to come out of this bondage and be liberated. And that's where the work is taking us, the work of Vivekachoodamani, in which the compassionate Guru is laying out the path before us. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramnaya. Let us sit in Atmavicharam. The key practice of the essence of this Viveka, that all other miseries arise only after the root duality of self and non-self arises. So whenever the non-self arises as thought, do not follow it, but diligently inquire from where does the relative self arise, or what is the truth of the relative self, by asking, who am I? Let's sit in Atmavicharam till 8 o'clock. Then we can listen to Akka. Ujulji, you can set the time for us. Oh, thank you.
name changes madam.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana. Shining is the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on Bhagavan Ramana's translation, prose translation of Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada's Vivekachoodamani. And today, Nandakumar has said, in that Viveka itself, the Chudamani of the Viveka is the discrimination between the self and the non-self. The question, who am I? Which comes about because one has already understood that all that is taken to be the I appears to be not the I. Therefore, the question arises, who am I? Because if I am content about who I am, the question, who am I, will not arise. And what can be a greater misery than not knowing oneself? If one knows who one is, there is a possibility, if I can assume that I am so and so, there is a possibility that sometimes I am sad and sometimes I am happy. But if I don't even know who I am, how can I attribute any happiness to myself? All the happiness which is experienced is not mine because I don't know who I am. So the greatest sorrow, the greatest misery is not knowing who I am. Once one has recognized this very, very sad position in which we are, then we turn to the Guru and say, my God, I am caught in this misery. I am caught in this great sorrow of not knowing who I am. Life is going by, and there can be no meaning to anything which is happening in life because I don't know to whom it is happening. No benefit is accruing to me, perhaps, if I don't know who I am. That is the greatest sorrow. But the other end of the spectrum, Bhagavan says to Gambhiram Sheshayar, he says that to be embodied, to have a body means to be in misery. Shri G. Kameshwar, my brother-in-law, was just meditating on Bhagavan Ramana's selections from the Bhagavad Gita. And he said, it is a little amazing that Bhagavan has selected a verse, in the very beginning, from the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the misery which Arjuna feels, the confusion which Arjuna feels, the sorrow which Arjuna experiences in being placed in such a situation where he has to fight his dear ones. And Kameshwarji said that even Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada does not start his commentary with this chapter, but Bhagavan has selected this verse. Why is it so? So when we were meditating upon that, so I said that Bhagavan does say all thoughts are sorrowful. All thoughts are sorrowful, says Bhagavan. And then Kameshwari said, yes, that is true. Bhagavan has started his Upadesha to Gambiram Sheshayar by saying that the very fact of being embodied means being miserable. Now, when one recognizes this, when one recognizes the sorrow of one's condition, then the path to get back to bliss is laid open to us. Because so long long as we think being embodied is comfortable, being this identity is comfortable, thoughts are bound to rise. Identification with the non-self is bound to continue. It is only when one becomes uncomfortable with this identified existence that one will seriously turn back to the truth of one's own nature. That is why here also in Vivekachoodamani, the disciple approaches the Guru from the perspective of misery, of sorrow. I am not able to see the shore at all. Oh my Lord, oh my Sadguru, very thought is miserable, that is true, and thought after thought is rising. There seems to be no end to it. There seems to be no end to this burden. Bhagavan says in Arunachala Padigam, பரமனில் பிரிந்து இவ் உலகினை தலையில் பற்று யான் பெற்றது போதும். I have got separated from you, O Arunachala, the Supreme One. I have got separated from the self, and as a consequence, what am I doing? I am carrying the world upon my head. And how do we carry the world upon our heads? Through our thoughts. We carry the world upon our heads. So Bhagavan comes to the essence of this self, non-self division. In Dridrishya Viveka, Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada takes us step by step on the journey of self, non-self. He says, if you look at the objects, if there is a seeing eye, the eyes are looking at something, then which is the self and which is the non-self? The object which is seen is obviously non-self. The eyes which are seeing at that point are identified with the self. I am seeing this computer screen. So I become my seeing eyes. But when I close my eyes, then what happens to this seeing? This seeing is not there. Then what happens? I become conscious of an inner seeing. If I close my eyes and imagine the same sight within my eyes, within my mind's eye, then what happens? I realize that these physical eyes may see or not see, may exist or not exist. During my dream, they don't exist, but my mind exists. So I become, the self becomes the mind. And Bhagavan takes us one step further and he says, thoughts are rising and setting. That which comes and goes cannot be you. So the thoughts rise and set. What is it that continuously makes you aware of the rising and setting of thoughts? That you find out by asking yourself, for whom are these thoughts? For whom is this thought? It is for me. I. So, in this manner, Bhagavan brings us to the essence of the waking self and the dream self. Both the waking self and the dream self have as their essence the I thought. But in deep sleep, the I thought also disappears. Therefore, it cannot be my reality. This we understand. But how can we dive into deep sleep while awake? How can we unravel the secret of deep sleep while awake or in the dream? Nandakumarji often tells us that when we begin to inquire, who am I? We already get into the dream realm. We bring the dream into our waking by giving the predominance to the mind rather than to the gross world. And by holding the I thought, Bhagavan Ramana tells us that when we hold the I during waking, continuously make an effort to hold the I thought by either questioning who am I, or to Humphreys he says, turn your attention to that which sees. Don't turn your attention to that which is seen. Don't keep your attention even on the process of seeing, but onto that which sees. Who am I? Not what am I seeing? What am I experiencing? What are my thoughts? No, don't keep your attention there. Turn it back and ask yourself repeatedly, continuously, Santatam Salitara, who am I? By that question, when one tries to hold it continuously during the waking, then it automatically takes us to the core, even underlying the deep sleep, says Bhagavan. So this is the jewel which is being given to us, the crest jewel of discrimination, the supreme discrimination, not just between the world and me, not even between the body and the mind, and between thought and the I thought, and further by questioning the I thought, taking oneself beyond the I thought, which is the root of the non-self, which is a root of ignorance, to the knowledge by the grace of that very knowledge, by the grace of that very self. Om Namo Bhagavate.
Namo Ramdaka. Namo Ramdaka to all.